graphical anomalies and issues can often mean the difference between a polished product and a rough one, so it's particularly unlucky when they occur on release, just when excitement is at its highest. Unfortunately for today's subject, graphical issues were one of the biggest problems on launch, so much so that people often refuse to even play the game, years after these things should be long forgotten. There was a lot riding on the release of Assassin's Creed Unity. It followed in the footsteps of arguably the best game in the series so far, and promised to really shake up the formula. This was the first entry to be solely released on the next-gen consoles, and it was going to refresh some of the systems that had started to stagnate. Launch day and people were not happy. Cutscenes were littered with gnarly looking faces, not just missing textures, but entire sections of characters' faces, leaving players with the twisted visages the game has become well known for. Falling through the world was not uncommon, and game-breaking glitches made sure that the game sat on pre-owned shelves for many months. It got so bad, in fact, that Ubisoft offered Black Flag DLC for free, something that can't have been cheap. Years later, and all those issues have apparently been fixed. So today on Playing by Series, I'm here to have another play of Assassin's Creed Unity to find out if the game is better than we all remember. First impressions are important, something that Unity is good at. The first thing I found was the lack of any present-day character to speak of at all. In the first hour, we are introduced to this game's present-day storyline, and it's the least involved to date. You play as a person playing video games who is recruited into the Assassins to play video games for them to help find a MacGuffin. At first, I thought this was brilliant. I don't have to leave the controls of the main character, and even better, there's very little present-day narrative to get in the way of the story. Playing on, however, I started to realise something. I missed the present-day sections of the game. I noticed that these sections previously had given a reason as to why we were playing through events of the past, and gave them stakes. Here there are no stakes beyond what we're given in the past story. We never get to see any modern assassins doing modern assassin things, and we're never given a reason to care about the events that we're told are unfolding. In forgetting the modern day parts of the story, the game suffers. Even the past story has suffered. It's just so annoyingly close to being great, but can't quite reach the heights of the stories that have come before. This time they've actually tried to do something different. The Assassins are on top and the Templars underground. Our main character is constantly annoyed at the bureaucracy of the Brotherhood and realises there are good people in the Templars. There's a great Romeo and Juliet story here with some brilliant shifting expectations, but it's all let down by some iffy writing. Unfortunately, the weakest links here are the characters, particularly main character Arno. You get the feeling that they wanted him to feel like Ezio, but forgot what made Ezio great: his journey from cocksure young fool to wise master assassin. Arno Dorian has the young cocksure fool nailed down, but we never get to see him on a personal journey. Sure, he realises things about the world around him, but he never changes throughout the story. All he does is brood, like a revolutionary Parisian Batman without the butler. This all highlights the main problem I've had with the game. Its first impressions are brilliant, but upon more playing and closer inspection, it really starts to show its cracks. Take the climbing, for example. When I first started to jump around the buildings and streets of France, it seemed more fluid, easier and more accomplished. Arno seemed to be able to make more impressive jumps than ever, and his freerunning looked more put together. But as I progressed through the game, I started to realise something. Less has changed than I had hoped. The controls remain the same. The climbing is more fluid and quicker, yes, but as with all the games before, it keeps some of the old climbing foibles I'd hoped had been ironed out. I'm still climbing walls that can't be climbed, and I'm still leaping off rooftops when I really don't want to. They've improved the wrong parts. It all looks better than ever, but still feels much the same as it always has. Some effort has been put in other places, however. Take the combat, for example. Gone are the one-hit counters and enemies that wait their turn before attacking. Taking influence from other systems of the time, countering gives you the opportunity to attack rather than outright kill. There is more challenge here, and it's all for the better. The gunplay as well has been improved. Shooting from the hip can really put the drop on a group of enemies, and the quick shoot option can really come in useful when things are looking dire. But the presence of guns is one of the combat's biggest weaknesses. In the more chaotic scene the combat creates, it's very difficult to dodge the badly broadcast shots of a rogue enemy. Frequently I found myself running afoul of a soldier with a gun, and in this game they use their firearms a lot. It's a shame because there's the potential here for the combat to be really good, but really it's lacking in some key areas. There's missed potential elsewhere as well, particularly within the graphics. Textures for the most part are fabulous, with an immense amount of detail in the world and its people. The skyline of Paris stretches out into the distance, with all the right landmarks of the time, making sure that you know exactly when and where you are. The character models, if we forget the pre-update horrors, are also top-notch. These are some of the best looking character models in a game of its type, looking better than some modern entries in the series. And that's really unfortunate because they lie underneath some really weird lighting. I first thought it was because I had the brightness cranked. Everything looks washed out and overly saturated. Arno's robes, which you can tell could look phenomenal, have had all the detail washed out in a bright haze that pervades the game. So I checked the brightness setting, popped it down, only to discover that it now looks weirdly dark and off-putting. It has to be the lighting model, which highlights the weirdest of things. It sends shadows in strange directions and makes the whole world feel yellow. Not like the yellow tinge we may have recognised from cover-based shooters of years prior, but a strange, pervasive warmth that hangs over the game like a fog. I think I know what they were going for, make it look colourful and new, but in the long run it just makes the game look odd. This is, as with many other aspects of the game, is really annoying. The graphics are so close to being incredible, but there is this weird choice that makes little to no sense. It's not all negative, thankfully. There are some excellent new additions, not least the sheer customizability the game offers. You've always been able to customise your assassin to a certain degree, but never like this. You can choose and mix from an incredible range of mix and match outfits with a range of stat boosts. You can pick the colour you want said outfit to be, from black, white and all the way through to my personal favourite, purple. It all adds up to making the main character feel more personal, and I think that's something they were focusing on for this release. You see, one of the biggest additions to the formula this time round is the addition of co-op play. You can join up with up to 3 other assassins, and together you can take on a range of co-op missions. This not only makes the personalisation of your assassins make sense, but also adds something new and exciting to an ageing franchise. So I thought I'd give it a go. Unfortunately, I ran into an issue. There's no one to play with. So as much as I'd like to comment on whether it works, I can't, because I can't play the co-op. I can play these missions on my own, however, and there's honestly not much to report. They're set up in a difficulty-based system, so you need better gear to take on the harder missions, and they differ sometimes in how many players you're allowed to take on a mission. Other than that, the mission structure is fairly unremarkable. There are the so-called Paris stories dotted around the map, which tell their own small stories as you play them, but they don't really do enough to catch your attention. This is just more evidence of missed opportunity. Those Paris stories could have become some of the highlights of the game, but they lack the staying power to be noteworthy. The story missions haven't changed much either, and the assassinations are even more restricted than before. You can now only use the hidden blade to assassinate targets, or the assassination doesn't count. It all leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Less sour is the map, a massive rendition of revolutionary Paris decked out in climbing aids and fancy water. Leaving aside the weird lighting I talked about before, this is still a magnificent sight. Landmarks stretch towards the sky, and the architecture reminds me of the great times I had playing in Renaissance Italy. It feels like the game we were expecting would have come out after Assassin's Creed Revelations, rather than the trip to America that we got. While this feels like a return to form, it also feels like an odd step backwards. particularly after the massive ocean world we got in Black Flag. No, we can't expect ship-based traversal to be the new focal point of the Assassin's Creed series, but it just kind of felt like it didn't change anything in the long run. This is a return to the unfortunate days of map clutter and meaningless side quests in a historical city, rather than the exciting journey we took through the Caribbean. Gone are the cool side activities, replaced instead with boring assassination missions and half-baked side quests. And that's a shame. It really felt like the extra activities of Black Flag would take us somewhere new, and I couldn't wait to see where we'd go. Alas, they didn't, and instead they replaced them with lock-picking minigames. Again. When I popped this game in my PlayStation, I'd hoped to end by saying, ultimately, beneath all the controversy upon its release, Assassin's Creed Unity is a great game! Unfortunately, I can't say it, because it's just not true. The graphics are weird, the combat is different, but flawed, and the climbing remains as irritating as ever. It feels like the sequel to Assassin's Creed Revelations that we expected at the time, and had it been released as such, we may well have felt differently about it. But it followed Black Flag, so instead, it just feels like a step backward. I think the best way to surmise my thoughts on the game is this. At its core is potential. There's a lot here to be excited about if it's built on. The improved shooting, the way the climbing is so close to being excellent, the graphics that, if not for the weird brightness, could be incredible. Really, I want to say play Assassin's Creed Unity for the story, but Arno stops me from doing even that. So in the long run, I guess I'll just say this. Assassin's Creed Unity is a game. It is not good, but neither is it bad. And I think, unfortunately, that that's worse than being awful. Thanks for watching another episode of Playing by Series. I've been Matt, and you're on the Den. For more Playing by Series and our weekly games content, get subscribed, and if you enjoyed this video, give us a like. Thanks again for watching, and in the meantime, stay safe.